Okay, it's the combat video for the X-2 Pimpmobile. This is its maiden flight. It was much smaller in those days. I had no idea how many engines I would need, of course. So this is the original version, which essentially has the exact same front. I just kept tacking engines to the back and to the bottom until it had the braking and the lift it needed. So, pirate lookout tower, very lightly armed. I don't think they've even got a proper Gatling gun. I think they've got a bunch of anti-personnel machine guns, but this was its shakedown. I wanted to test the systems, see how quickly it knocked out weapons, that kind of thing. Test this targeting box here. Huge black box that will occasionally appear. Probably needs tweaking so that it's a bit more transparent than it is right now. But it's very handy. I throw up the black box and I can see what I'm targeting. Now at this point you can see some sparkling on the enemy tower, and they've stopped shooting at me and my shield stopped reacting, and little sparkles are reaching out to touch my enemy, and those are my 200 meter odd range build and repair systems being used as grinders, Dummy Industries nano grinders. So the first thing they do is grind off enemy weapons, or grind enemy weapons down to disabled in this case. So on the button rack there's on off for my grinders. It's button 1. Then there's on off for that targeting box that you saw that helps me line up the grinders. Then number 4 is on off for disable, which is a super important button to have because I need to have disable on and my grinders on as I fly into range thusly. And then hopefully at this sort of point those nano grinders have hit those rocket launchers and disabled them. So this is the first test of the enlarged engine. The initial tests showed that I didn't have enough hover engines to take all the loot that I would grind off the enemies home. So I went and added a bunch of engines and then went and attacked another tower. And I tried to get an idea from this tower as to where they were aiming on my ship. And it seems to shuffle around a bit as I change my ship. I'm not sure. It seems like they were aiming for the weakest bit of the front of my ship, oddly enough, which seems clever. I've got a refinery on the front of my ship with welders behind it keeping it alive. Then I've got a couple of regular Joe Schmo armoured blocks on one side to give the width that I wanted. I wanted it to be 5 wide. So they seem to be aiming for that. There's also a camera mounted on those blocks, but I wasn't using the camera. Maybe they were aiming for the camera. Maybe they were aiming mid-on and all the random number generators are just moving it to that side. Because I'm sure I've had other combats where they seem to have aimed for the port side of my ship instead. So in theory they should be targeting my gyro or my cockpit, which are both central and high in their mounting. I wanted the shots to mostly be hitting the refinery armour, so it's relatively central behind the refinery armour. It's 4 long, so there's no centre position behind the refinery. It's as close as I get though. So after discovering I couldn't haul a full cargo load home, went and added a second big downward thrusting engine, went and tested it again, added some more engines. Became a case of me chasing the ability to fill all these boxes you see here up with loot and then actually fly them home. So it gets to the point where you're adding a lot of hovering thrust. So that's a pirate lookout tower eaten from range while I just hover. So having established that the new version of the ship was working, and having gotten that particular lookout tower out of the way, because it was going to be firing at my bum if I tried to attack this thing, now move on to a more decent target, which is a frontier outpost, I believe. Classic pirate station to attack. 2 big Gatling guns on the roof and a couple of smaller anti-personnel ones mounted around the side. Sparkles and flashes as my nano system engages with the various guns, knocks them out. So I overdid my charge there. The issue with this ship is that my weapon range is about 225 meters and their weapon range is 600, 700, wherever they've set that meters. So there's a gap I need to close, which I usually do a bit of a charge to get through. Daylight charge across the minefield for the win. And yes, I needed better braking engines, was one conclusion of these sorts of manoeuvres. And it's important that I cover that distance, because until I hit the 200 meter mark I can't paralyze their ship or wipe out their guns. So the way the grinding order is on these attack grinders, it attacks their weapons first and it will disable them, because my number 4 key will be set to on, disable on. So all of these grinders will be just disabling things. So after they've done the weapons, they'll then move on to the power systems and disable those. So if you're flying a ship, it will then fall out of the sky because it suddenly loses all power. Even if it's a hydrogen ship, it'll still fall out of the sky as soon as my nasty venomous little paralyzer goes and nukes your power systems. So you lose your guns, you lose your power systems. It depends how quickly I hit the number 4 key and switch off the disable feature. It'll just go through the list, it'll move on to thrusters and various sorts of things that are my priority, mostly a bit of a loot priority after that. Once I've knocked out your weapons and power, you shouldn't be much of a threat. So we can just land on the ice using my tiny foot. Of sticking a tiny foot on a big ship. It's most amusing. And then I can kill my engines and just be in a fixed position, grinding the enemy to death. Check the exterior for any damage. So after grinding weapons, it does power, then thrusters, and then it goes through a list with armor being last. So it'll disable all the active stuff on the ship or station until I hit the number 4 key and switch disable mode off, at which point it just becomes a big grinding machine that's pulling the whole base to bits, but doing it in the same order as before. So it'll pull the weapons to bits, grab me the ammo, finish pulling the power systems to bits, grab all the uranium, and move on to the thrusters, pull them to bits. If they've got ions, I get the thruster components. So those are my main loot priorities to grab, is ammo, uranium and thruster components. So after that I'm not quite so fussed about what order it does things. The enemy should be paralysed and I can just rip their ship to bits and salvage it. So I think most of the innards on this one are now gone. So it's just an armoured shell, and then the armour is the last priority of my grinders. Your armour will not protect you, they will just hollow you out. So lots of nice goodies from a frontier outpost. I attack them all the time, drill under them, whatever. Gravity components, reactor components. There'll be some ice, medical components, some sort of tools and weapon loot, some uranium ingots from their reactor to keep me going. It's the great thing about this ship is that it loots its own power supply. There's some precise rifles, they're good. Some super welders, some superconductors, all kinds of goodies. Some empty oxygen bottles because everyone wanted those. Lots of nice goodies that I can use to build my own stuff. Frontier Outpost is full of goodness. Very difficult to take on without some good equipment. I've burrowed under them, attacked them from underneath with grinders, tried attacking them with kinetic missiles, but eventually you need to get in there and grind them up. Which is precisely what this gadget is doing. So I can go and eat some enemy bases, or ideally some enemy ships, because a ship will have thruster components and uranium and ammo, and they've just got a goodly supply of everything. Speaking of which, enough puddling around, this is a hunchback dropship. It had an altercation with someone, I think Midas, not Reavers. It did a bit of a parachute and then decided to just sort of hover here, and it was kind of in an annoying spot. In comes a rocket volley. Still having trouble slowing down soon enough, but 100 meters. Means I wiped my nano right across it and disarmed it on my way in. As you can see, the power systems just got disabled and it plummeted to the ground. So if I wanted to really do a better salvage job on things, it would be worthwhile not knocking out the thrusters and power quite so fast, but simply knock out their weapons and then slowly chew up their good bits from there. But it's mostly the loot from their power systems and from their weapons and thrusters, particularly if they've got ions. Those are the three loots that I want. I don't need construction components that much. I don't need steel plate that much. So it's good to just slurp the main things I need and leave my ship lighter and go searching for another victim. So yes, the dropship went down. So this increased size of ship, it's not significantly beefier, but it can lift way more and carry way more. Ping ping ping! Where are they aiming? Seems like they're aiming at the camera, doesn't it? Don't know what else to declare that target as. This installation only has machine guns, and I turned up primarily to watch them shoot my shield and shoot my ship, because I was trying to figure out what they were targeting. But when I moved on to other targets, it was like they were targeting a different spot. So I'm not sure. I thought if I could figure out where they're targeting, I could slap on some extra armour. Definitely going to armour that spot right there a bit more. Missile volley from the Harpy. And getting close, 200 odd meters. I don't know if the missiles are slower in volley than I thought they were. I thought you get a continuous stream of missiles. Down goes the Harpy. I kind of swung away to see who this guy a kilometre away was, just as the Harpy fell to its doom there. From paralysis you can see my armour getting repaired on the nose a bit there. So between all that missile and machine gun fire, it was getting a bit through. I took a little bit of damage from that Harpy, token damage. But here's what we're here for, the Pirate Fortress. It launches a decent sized fighter. It's not just a little drone of a thing. There it is. Comes past and starts machine gunning me. I thought I could knock it out, but it might just keep launching them. I don't know. I'll test that out next time. This time I just did the operation go straight for the jugular. A volley of missiles to the face. Targeting computer on. More missiles and guns to the face. Still getting niggled on by that other guy. Surrounded. Yeah, that guy decided that the key tactic was to hover directly above me, so that brought out the Klingon in me, and I prepared for ramming speed. So I think the fortress has been essentially disarmed by the disarming ray, attempting to inflict the same on this little fighter summoning here. Extra reverse engines for the win. There we go. Take that. Down it goes. No one is a match for my paralysis beam. My fiendish mad scientist super weapon that can allow a teeny tiny little ship like this one for a large grid ship. This is pretty microscopic really. It dwarfs all my small grid ships, but for a large grid construct it's pretty compact, even with the extra engines tacked on the bum. It's only 5 actual blocks wide, and then there's some half armour on either side of that, so maybe 6 blocks wide if you're being generous. And if you apply the same measuring method, you could say it's 3 blocks high. in the main section with a few doodads hanging out the bottom, sticking out the top. So that is a mighty pirate fortress. It is covered in guns, it's covered in missile launchers, and it's full of pirate booty, and it's pretty freaking huge. It's a big nasty thing compared to me. This is the pretty much final version of my ship. I might put a 5th vertical engine on the tail here, don't know, but I've got 5 reverse engines on this version, so I can suddenly thrust backwards or brake. So there we have damage report. I've lost all my small grid tail. Don't know if my shield failed to cover it or what happened there, but it blew off my rotor that converts into the small grid, which means I've lost my survival kit, so I need to be careful. And I've lost my repair systems that keeps my ship held together, except for the welders in the nose that repair the refinery. So I really think I had a fairly empty ship. So checking out the loot you get from a pirate base, there's a lot of it, and it is good. Uranium, always a good thing to snaffle from your enemy. Rockets, weapon magazines, Gatling gun boxes of ammo, even more uranium. That's a solid amount of uranium. That's a very solid amount of ammo for hand weapons, 4,500 clips. Won't be running out of hand weapon ammo anytime soon. So some very sweet loot from the pirate fortress. Easily worth having some buckled armor and some lost pieces. I can replace them easy enough. You can see the buckled armor at the back. Obviously took some hits around where the small grid connects there. Took some hits on the heavy armor in front of my engine at the back, and the heavy armor that's on the side of the refinery on the front here, which is particularly vulnerable and needs to be thickened up. Might put an upward engine there on the back, and I might thicken up the armor that goes next to the refinery on the nose here, even if it means losing a camera on the nose. I don't think that nose camera is super vital. So having a peek inside, we can see that one welder is in fact missing, and the other 2 are working well enough to burn me horribly and make me regret stepping over there. I'd be a fool to step over there. Oh, and I stepped over there again. What do you know? So there's a missing 3rd welder, 2 missing armoured blocks, some crumpled armour there, missing armour and crumpled armour here, and the rotor that converts to small grid is gone. Apart from that, there doesn't seem to be any damage to the little cab at the back there. No more survival kit. So if I died out here, I'd be up for a journey at this point. So there you go. Pimpmobile X-2 versus Pirate Fortress. For such a small ship, she packs a bit of a punch, she's a bit of a defiant, and I don't mind it.